All right, let's fuel the flame of concern for Dallas Cowboys fans. Mike McCarthy, second-year head coach of the team, giving the update on Dak Prescott and that lingering shoulder strain that has kept him from practicing or playing so far in the preseason. Here's McCarthy.
I mean, Dak's status is, I would guess, continue to classify it as limited. We'll just continue the throwing regimen and keep building up the volume.
So at this point, with this being the last added practice, is it fair to say he won't play?
There's a good chance he probably won't play, yes. That's fair.
Look, if he doesn't play at all in the preseason, then this year there's only 3 games, not that anyone who starts ever plays. It's very, very rare that you see starters in that 4th preseason game. Only 3 chances this year. If he doesn't play at all, we're 3 weeks away from tonight.
Yeah.
Cowboys at Buccaneers to start the season. How big of a deal is it for Dak if he's, assuming he's even able to play week 1, and God help the Cowboys if he can't play week 1, then it's Garrett Gilbert, Cooper Rush, or whoever else they roll out there. But how big of a deal is it for him to be ready to play if he's able to play if he hasn't had any preseason reps?
It's a big deal, but not as big a deal as putting out Garrett Gilbert or DiNucci or somebody like that to start the game. You know?
How can I forget Ben DiNucci, my countryman?
I know.
You got Ben DiNucci, you got Garrett Gilbert, and you got Cooper Rush. You could take the 3 of them and put their best attributes together, and you'd still, all due respect, not have a guy you'd want to put on the football field in a regular season game.
Right. I mean, listen, I don't know what the original plan was in Dallas. But it certainly seemed like the early training camp that he would play a game or 2. I mean, I never heard anybody state it early on that, like, yeah, you're not going to see Dak this preseason. Yeah, I would think, at a base level, a guy that got hurt, what was that, week 4 last year against the Giants? Week 4 or 5, right? Somewhere in there. So I would think that Dak would want to get out there and, just feel the game a little bit, get some reps, do some things like that. I would think the Cowboys probably wanted that for him as well. But now with this injury, it's just become too risky. And, that risk is less than like what we're talking about, putting Garrett Gilbert or DiNucci or Cooper Rush out there. They got no chance of beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with those 3. I can tell you that. No chance. So they need him to be healthy and ready to go, at least to play. Yeah, he probably is not going to be his 100% best self now that he doesn't get to play in a preseason game or practice and do those things. But still, like you're saying, an 85, 90% Dak Prescott's better than any of those guys any day of the week. And I think that's what they're balancing. And, last thing, Mike, again, it's a weird injury. It's a weird injury. I've never heard of a quarterback pulling their lat muscle throwing a football. I challenge anybody to really come up with one. I know me and my father have thought about it, and I've never heard of it. So that's probably why they're being extra careful too.
The fact that they don't have anybody on the training staff who knows how to deal with it, and they had to go to baseball teams to get their advice, just shows you how rare and unusual the injury is. Chris, help me understand this.
Yeah.
Because I can't figure it out. Last year they had Andy Dalton.
I know.
As the guy ready to go in the event that something happened with Dak Prescott. And something happened, and they needed Andy Dalton. Now this year, it's Gilbert, DiNucci, and Rush. And we talked earlier in the week, the Jaguars are, I think, waiting and hoping someone makes an offer for Gardner Minshew. That would be a great alternative. I wouldn't feel nearly as bad about Minshew than I would about the other 3 if Dak can't go. Why do you think they've done a 180 on having clear veteran presence with starting experience 2020 and nothing 2021?
I don't know. I really don't know what the logic is there, right? Like last year we thought it was a smart move because we went, man, the Cowboys might be a Super Bowl contender before the season and all that, right? So you went, that's good to have the backup quarterback. I don't know if they came to the determination like, hey, we got the backup quarterback and it didn't matter. He didn't really help us as much as we would have liked to. But, of course, I don't think he was the reason. Andy Dalton wasn't the reason. How about having, like, the worst defense in football? That was the reason. I mean, it was just hard to overcome. So I don't know if they feel better about the 3 guys they got behind Dak now. Maybe they've improved, and, of course, they're getting to see it firsthand. Or maybe they're doing, like, kind of what you're saying. They're just kind of waiting on the back burner here to, see one of these veteran guys released, or maybe make a trade for him right before the release to do that type of thing. But
Don't you want the guy there, though?
I would
you
think
need the
so.
guy there to
Yeah,
get him ready to learn your offense.
I know. I'm with you, Mike. I don't get it either way. I mean, that would concern me, especially from the standpoint that this is going to be an offensive-driven team. I mean, we know that. Yeah, I expect the defense to be better. Dan Quinn's going to make them better. The personnel fits his scheme better than it did Mike Nolan and all that. But we know at the end of the day, it's still going to be about the passing game in Dallas. It is. It's going to be all about those receivers and winning games that way. And you're right. I mean, right now I have no faith in those guys behind him to win games with their right arm and getting shootouts against Brady or whoever else. I just don't see that. So I don't know where they would go, but I would think at some point here they're going to at least get a guy with a little bit more experience to make them feel better. But still, here's another thing, too, I want to bring up, Mike, just real quick. Sorry. Like, I watched Dak Prescott last year before the injury, and I watched Dak Prescott after the injury. There is something different in his throwing motion. I know you and I talked about it on the podcast like 2 weeks ago, but there definitely is. I had clips next of last year compared to the ones I saw this year at Hard Knocks and all of that. Last year, it was a smooth takeaway like this. Now, this year, for some reason, it's this more of this, which hinges on the lat. And I know I explained to you a little bit, like, because his right ankle was broken and he's a righty, I don't know if he overcompensated or recruiting muscles because he can't push off with that back leg, so this helped him create a little bit more power. But from a base level as a thrower, I think that's why they're being very slow with this, because it's concerning, it's rare. Like you said, it's a baseball injury, and they're just going to make sure it gets totally 100% before they throw him out there and let him go.
One last point on the absence of a veteran with starting experience. I'm reminded of Ted Thompson, the late GM of the Packers. This was several years ago, 7, 8, 9 years ago. He was asked why he didn't have a veteran presence behind Aaron Rodgers, and his explanation was they don't do that because they don't want to jinx the starter, which makes, frankly, absolutely no sense whatsoever. But if any GM in the league would think like that, I would say Jerry Jones would be the one guy who would think like that. We jinxed him last year with Andy Dalton. We don't want to jinx him by having a guy who's ready to come in and play, who's been a starter in the NFL. That's the only plausible explanation I can come up with, and I only say it because Ted Thompson once actually articulated it.
No, I mean, I'm surprised by the current state of their roster, too, at the quarterback position. I'm with you there. You know, I mean, I would think there's going to be some teams out there that have some quarterbacks with experience that are going to be, you know, on that cut deadline, or, you know, we're not sure if we're going to keep him on the roster. But, you know, you make the point. Yeah, you'd like to have that guy in there to learn the offense. But at the same time, I think as of right now, they feel like, you know, we don't need him to be that guy we might trade for to know the offense. Dak is still going to start week 1, and that guy might have some time to learn everything in the offense. But definitely peculiar to me. I'm with you there.
This also goes back to Peyton Manning's time with the Colts, where he never had anyone who was really ready to come in and play behind him. Pete has this is John Gruden and Ron Jaworski from apparently years ago asking Tom Moore, who, you know, legendary offensive guru who was with the Colts then, why he wasn't giving some snaps to Peyton Manning's backups. Moore is a man of few words, but when he talks, those words have weight. He looked us both in the eye, paused for a moment, then said in that gravelly voice of his, "Fellas, if 18 goes down, we're F-D, and we don't practice F-D." That's the point.
Maybe that's how they feel, yeah.
I've heard that as it relates to not having a third quarterback, and I think it was Mike McCarthy who once said, we don't have a third quarterback because if we get to quarterback number 3, we're already screwed. Well, some teams look at it as if you get to quarterback number 2, you're already screwed.
Maybe that's what they came to it's kind of what I was saying before. Maybe they came to the determination last year, like, wait, why pay, you know, a backup that kind of money and do those type of things? It didn't really affect our season or do anything positive for us. You know, so maybe they are taking the approach of like, hey, we'll save that money, and if Prescott can't play, then we're just not going to be as good. And that's just as simple as it gets. Maybe they are. I think it's risky, certainly. Mike McCarthy can't feel happy about that. I mean, if Prescott gets hurt and there's another underwhelming year, man, everybody's going to be calling for his head. I mean, so I would think from his stance, at least, he would want a guy in there with a little bit more experience. But, we'll see. We'll see how it plays out.
Hey, when you got $160 million over 4 years tied up in Dak, it really doesn't leave much money in the budget for the backup quarterback. That may be the simplest explanation.
Right.
They've over-leveraged the starting quarterback budgetary allotment. They don't have any money for anything other than Garrett Gilbert, Ben DiNucci, and Cooper Rush.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.